Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive.
Mm.
And today we're going to be looking at global adaptations in
Ooh,
film and television.
I like it.
Yeah.
Global adaptation.
You know how sometimes you have like your favorite story or your favorite movie or something like that,
Right.
and then they kind of like reimagine it for a different audience?
Yes.
It's kind of what we're talking about today. And what really kind of sparked this whole deep dive was this interview with Nicole Wallace,
Okay.
who was the star of this Spanish film, My Fault.
Okay.
And there's this upcoming release of My Fault, London, which she had absolutely no idea about.
Really?
Yeah, she had no idea that this was even happening. And so it really kind of makes you think about, what are the implications for actors, in the film industry when things like this happen?
Yeah, like how much control do they have over where their likeness or their work ends up?
Exactly.
That's wild.
Yeah, so we'll get into that. But first of all, she was talking with the actor who's playing Noah in the London adaptation. And that's how she found out about this whole London version.
Wow, what a way to find out.
Right.
Yeah.
Like you're just having a casual conversation with somebody and you find out that there's this whole other version of this movie that you starred in.
That you were the lead in. Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So anyway, My Fault. For those of you who haven't seen it, it's this romantic drama, and it's about this young woman, Nick, and she kind of gets thrown into this whole world with her stepbrother, Noah, who's this kind of like rebellious guy,
Okay,
underground
I
fights,
see.
that sort of thing.
Forbidden romance kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Those always do well.
Yeah, and so, I think what was interesting is that even Nicole Wallace was kind of intrigued by the whole idea of this being adapted for a different, cultural context.
Yeah.
Because, London's very different from Spain.
Sure.
And she even
Yeah.
talked about in the interview, like, how that would even shape the story differently.
I mean, that makes sense. Like, you think about the setting and the culture.
Yeah. And like you were saying, how different those two places are, like, it's going to have an impact on the characters in the story.
Totally. And then she's like, I don't know if this is going to turn into a scam.
Ooh.
She kind of said it jokingly.
Okay.
But it does make you think, like, is there a downside to this whole global adaptation trend?
Yeah, because, I
Yeah.
mean, on the one hand, it's great to, like, share stories and reimagine things for new audiences.
Right.
But, like, is there a point where it becomes less about, the art and more about just, like, making money off of a trend?
Yeah, like a cash grab.
A cash grab, exactly.
And, it's funny because she brought up this Marvel Universe comparison.
Oh, interesting.
Apparently, she and the actor who's playing Noah in the London version were kind of joking around, like,
Yeah.
could My Fault become like a whole interconnected franchise?
Like its own little cinematic universe?
Yeah, just like Marvel,
Wow.
that would be kind of crazy.
That's a big idea. I mean, Marvel's done it very successfully, but, like, can you just take any story and turn it into that kind of a thing?
Right. And that's a good question
Yeah.
because, you know, we've seen what happens when studios try to milk a trend for all it's worth.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I remember when Twilight came out,
Oh, yeah.
and then there was this whole wave of vampire movies.
Vampire everything.
Yeah, and it's like, at a certain point, it's just overkill.
Totally. Like, you can have too much of a good thing,
Exactly.
right? It's like having your favorite dessert every single day.
Yeah, you get sick of it after a while.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's the challenge with this whole global adaptation model is like, how do you find that balance
Right.
between expanding a story's reach, but also making sure that it keeps its individuality?
Yeah. Like, how do you make sure it doesn't get watered down or lose its originality in the process?
And the funny thing is, Nicole Wallace hasn't even seen any footage of the London adaptation yet.
Oh, wow. So she's going in blind.
She's going in totally blind, so she's just as curious as we are to see how this all turns out.
That's pretty cool, actually. Like,
Yeah.
she's almost like a fan at this point,
Right.
just waiting to see what they've done with her story.
Exactly. And speaking of global adaptations, there's this series, Citadel.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of that.
They're doing some pretty interesting stuff with that one.
Yeah. What are they doing?
So basically, they're creating different versions of the show
Okay.
for different parts of the world.
Oh, wow.
So, like,
So, like Citadel, U.S., Citadel,
yeah,
India,
exactly.
that kind of thing.
Like Citadel, Italy.
Wow. That's really interesting.
And each one has its own unique cast and setting.
So they're really tailoring it to each region. I
Yeah,
wonder if they'll, like, connect them at all.
that's what I was thinking.
Like, will there be crossover episodes or, like, little nods to the other versions?
Yeah, will there be like shared storylines?
Yeah, it's like a really cool experiment in storytelling.
It is.
Like blurring the lines between local and global narratives
It really makes you think, like, as a viewer, like, what do you do?
Yeah.
Do you watch just one version? Do you try to watch them all to get, like, the full picture?
It's almost like choose your own adventure, but on a global scale.
Exactly.
That's kind of cool.
It's like a whole new way of experiencing a story.
Yeah, I like that.
And I think that's what's so exciting about this whole trend is that it's really pushing the boundaries of what's possible in storytelling.
Definitely. It's a whole new world of possibilities.
Yeah, and it kind of makes you wonder, like, where's the line between, like, creative reimagining and just, like, taking someone else's work?
Right. Like, at what point does it stop being an adaptation and become something else entirely?
Yeah.
That's a tough question.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we're going to see play out more and more as this trend continues to evolve.
Definitely. It's a whole new set of challenges and opportunities for storytellers.
Totally. So, like, imagine you're the actor.
Yeah.
You've poured your heart and soul into this role.
Right. You've made it your own.
And then all of a sudden, there's this other version of it.
Wow.
With someone else, like, interpreting your character in a totally different way.
Yeah, maybe even in a different language.
Yeah, and you had no idea.
That's got to be a strange feeling.
It's like looking in a mirror and seeing, like, an alternate version of yourself.
Right. What would you even think?
Like, you'd be excited to see your work reach a wider audience.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like...
You'd feel a little possessive, maybe?
A little bit. Yeah, like, that's your thing.
Yeah, like you created that character.
And now someone else is running with it.
Exactly.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, it's a tricky balance for sure.
Yeah. And it brings up all these questions about, like, creative ownership.
Yeah.
And artistic vision.
And what it even means to adapt something.
Right.
It's not as simple as it used to be.
And I think that's what makes this whole topic so interesting, is that there's no easy answers.
Totally. It's all about exploring those nuances and seeing where this whole thing goes.
Exactly. And for those of you who are interested, My Fault, London and Citadel are both available on Amazon Prime Video, according to our sources.
Sorry,
We're not endorsing the platform or anything,
just letting people know where they can find it.
Exactly, if you're curious.
I think it'll be fascinating to see how this all plays out.
You too.
Like, will this become the new norm for storytelling?
Yeah, like, will it become its own genre?
Or will it just influence the way all stories are told from now on?
Right, like, it really makes you think about the future of film and television.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, one thing's for certain, the world of entertainment is constantly changing.
Always evolving.
And global adaptations are just the latest chapter in that ongoing story.
And it's a pretty exciting chapter.
It really is. So until next time, keep those minds curious, keep those conversations flowing, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it really is a tempting comparison, isn't it?
It is.
Like, to think that My Fault could become like this whole interconnected universe, you know?
Right.
With like each adaptation being a piece of the global puzzle.
Yeah, like almost like a tapestry or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's definitely exciting to think about.
It is.
But I do wonder if there's a point where that interconnectedness starts to feel forced.
Yeah.
Like, does it work for every story? You know?
That's a good point because, I mean, like the Marvel Cinematic Universe works because there's this underlying mythology.
Right. They've got like a whole history and like a shared set of rules.
Right. And like a shared history that kind of ties everything together.
Yeah.
But like, can you replicate that with just any story?
I don't know.
Yeah. And I think we've kind of seen what happens when studios try to like milk a trend for all it's worth.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, I'm thinking back to like all those vampire movies that came out after Twilight.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It was like vampire everything.
Everything was vampires.
And at a certain point, it's just like...
Too much.
Yeah, overkill.
Yeah,
No,
totally.
no.
It's like you can have too much of a good thing.
Exactly.
And then it just loses its appeal.
It's like having your favorite dessert every day.
Exact.
Eventually, you're going to get sick of it.
Yeah, no matter how much you loved it at first.
Right.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
And I think that's like the key challenge with this global adaptation model is like, how do you find that sweet spot? You know,
right?
Between expanding a story's reach and like preserving its individuality.
Yeah, you want to make sure it doesn't get watered down.
Right.
Or lose its originality in the process.
And the funny thing is that Nicole Wallace hasn't even seen any footage of the London adaptation yet.
Oh, wow.
So she's going in totally blind.
Really?
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
And she even said that in the interview.
Wow.
And so
she's just as curious as the rest of us.
Yeah.
To see how it turned out.
It's almost like she's a fan herself.
Yeah.
Just like waiting to see.
Waiting for the premiere.
Exactly.
Awesome.
So speaking of global adaptations.
Okay.
Have you heard about this series, Citadel?
Yeah, I think I've heard of it.
Okay.
What's that one about?
So they're doing some really interesting things with that one, too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so basically they're creating different versions of the show
Oh, wow.
for different parts of the world.
Oh, wow.
So like,
Like a Citadel for like the US
yeah,
and then like a Citadel for like India or something.
exactly.
Oh, wow.
Like Citadel, Italy.
That's really interesting.
And each one has its own unique cast and setting.
Wow. So they're really tailoring it
Yeah,
to each region.
exactly.
I wonder if they'll connect them at all.
Yeah, I was wondering that too.
Like, will there be like crossover episodes?
Yeah, or
Will-
like little Easter eggs.
Yeah, or like shared storylines or something.
Yeah.
It's like a really cool experiment.
It is.
Storytelling.
Yeah, it's really blurring the lines between
Yeah.
like local and global narratives. It really makes you think, like, as a viewer, like, what do you do?
Right.
Do you just watch one version?
Yeah.
Do you try to watch them all?
Like, how do you get the full picture?
Yeah, to get the full picture.
That's a good question.
You know?
It's almost like choose your own adventure,
It is.
but like on a global scale,
Yeah.
which is kind of a cool concept.
It's like a whole new way of
Yeah.
experiencing a story.
I like that.
Yeah, and I think that's what's so exciting about this whole trend,
Yeah.
is that it's really pushing the boundaries
Yeah.
of what's possible in storytelling.
It's a whole new world of possibilities.
And it kind of makes you wonder, like, where's the line
Yeah.
between, like, creative reimagining
Mm-hmm.
and just, like, taking someone else's work?
Right. Like,
Wow.
at what point does it stop being an adaptation
Right.
and become something else entirely?
That's a really good question, and it's one that I think is going to become even more relevant,
Oh, yeah.
as this trend keeps going.
For
Like,
sure.
how do we define that line?
Yeah. Where is that line?
Yeah, because adaptation has always been a part of storytelling, right?
Right from the beginning.
But this global approach
Yeah.
brings a whole new set of complexities.
Definitely, yeah. It adds a whole other layer to it.
Yeah, and it makes you think, like, if you were the actor,
Yeah.
how would you feel about this?
Right.
You know?
If it was your work.
Yeah, like you've poured your heart and soul into this role.
Yeah, you've made it your own.
You've really, like, embodied this character, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden there's another version of it out there.
Right. And you had no say in it.
Yeah.
Wow.
With someone else interpreting your character
Yeah.
in a totally different way.
In a whole different context.
Yeah.
Maybe even a different language.
Yeah.
That's wild.
It's kind of like looking into an alternate reality,
It is.
isn't it?
Yeah, it's like seeing a version of yourself that you never even imagined.
Right.
That could be cool.
It could be cool, yeah.
Like, on the one hand, it's exciting, Like, your work is reaching a wider audience.
Yeah.
People who might never have seen the original are now getting to experience it in a whole new way.
Yeah, imagine seeing, like, your character come to life in, like, a Bollywood musical
Oh, yeah.
or, like, a Korean drama.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
But I can also see how it could feel a little weird.
Yeah.
Like you said, you kind of feel that sense of ownership
Right.
over the character.
Yeah, like you created that.
You brought it to life.
Yeah, and now someone else is
Running with it.
running with it.
Yeah, that could be hard.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
Yeah, for sure.
And it really raises all these questions about, like, creative ownership
Total.
and, like, artistic vision.
What does it even mean to adapt something anymore?
Yeah. Like, where do we draw those lines?
It's not as simple as it used to be.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes this topic
Yeah.
so fascinating,
So interesting.
is that there's no easy answer.
No easy answers.
You know?
It's all about, like,
Yeah.
exploring those gray areas,
Yeah, and seeing where this whole thing goes.
seeing how it evolves.
Exactly. So for anyone who's interested in checking out these global adaptations, my fault, London
Mm.
and Citadel are both available on Amazon Prime Video,
Okay, cool.
according to our sources.
Right.
Again, we're not endorsing the platform or
Right.
anything, just letting you know where you can find them.
Just passing along the info.
Exactly. Cool.
If you're curious.
I think it'll be really interesting to see what happens with this whole trend.
Me too.
Like, will it stick around?
Yeah. Like, will it become the new norm?
New standard for storytelling.
Yeah. Will it, like, influence the way all stories are told?
That would be interesting.
Yeah, like, it really makes you think about the future
The future of entertainment.
of film and television.
Exciting time.
Yeah. So until next time, keep those minds curious, keep those conversations flowing, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.
Sounds good.